Well, good morning. We are super excited to be here today for our inaugural Resilience Conversations podcast, Facebook Live, something. Not sure what we're calling it formally yet. But I'm Katie Perez. I'm a consultant here at ESSDACK, and I'm super excited to be joined today with Carmen Zeisler and Rebecca Lewis-Pankratz, who are part of our Trauma Informed team. So we decided to start this podcast. We'll talk a little bit later about what our goals are and why we're really doing this. But today, let's just kind of take a moment to share a moment of gratitude, something that you're just super thankful for this morning as we get started here. So, Carmen?
Yeah, I'm just really thankful to be in this season right now. I got to hang out with one of my good friends last night. She actually helped me clean my car. I mean, and if you know my car, you know that is like a true gift of gratitude.
It's co-care
at its finest.
Yes. Rebecca, how about you? What's something you're grateful for this morning?
Just that I am in a downshift. And so it's been intense last year with just lots of good work, but I feel my soul needing to recharge. And so it's on the calendar and I've got 12 days where I'm nothing scheduled, just family. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Nice. I had a really nice evening last night with my daughter, Sadie, and we always do random acts of Christmas every year, and she gets a budget and she goes and she makes decisions. And so last night we went and shopped for 13 of her friends, as well as some residents at a local senior center that she's really excited about. And it's always fun to see that moving in her life. So awesome. So the first segment we're going to do in each of our episodes here is a social media minute. I think one thing that we are all very active on Facebook and Twitter, and we follow groups and we follow people who are very interested in the trauma-informed movement. And sometimes we see things that maybe trigger us in a good way or a bad way, to think about, is that really what I believe? Is that what I think? Is that true? Is that accurate? Are we sending the wrong message here? So our goal here is just to kind of unpack one of those things. To each episode, take something that we're seeing maybe go viral and stop and ponder it a little deeper. So the one that I saw this morning was a post that said, in the past, schools were better and students were better behaved. Basically that school worked for me mentality. Why are we shifting things now? So it just made me curious. Do we believe that? Do we believe that this trauma is a new thing, that schools are shifting and kids are bad now compared to 20, 30, 40 years ago? I don't know. Let's dig in and talk about that for a minute.
I think one of my favorite quotes of all time is one that says, this up and coming generation will be the downfall of all mankind. I think it was Aristotle that said that quote. So I think it's very normal that we look and we just are appalled by some of the things that the younger generations do. We don't know how to connect with that. I really don't know what a classroom looked like 20 years ago. I do know that when I was a kid in grade school, that there were kids getting pulled out regularly and getting paddled with switches. And so, but we still had behavior problems in my school back then. I mean, I remember moms dragging kids out by their ears and screaming and, so I'm not so sure things are much different. I think our approaches are different. But I do believe we have less resilience. And I don't mean resilience as a character kind of attribute. I mean it more as less safe, supportive, connected social fabric and community. So our villages are smaller and more isolated. Middle-class parents are stressed. Families in poverty are stressed. It's getting harder and harder. Our schedules are packed. We're exhausted. And I think that shows up on the doorstep of school very differently compared to 10 years ago, even, where we had more community, kind of more villages, more people looking out for kids to build that resilience, those safe, supportive, connected relationships. I don't know. That's something I think about.
Katie, I always remember what you say. I'd love for you to share about the red cars. That always this always brings that up for me.
Yeah. So I talk about how I think sometimes we're just predisposing ourselves to see more now as we become more aware. It's kind of like when you go to the car store and you buy a brand new red RAV4 and you've never seen one on the road before. You're super excited about driving this awesome, beautiful, shiny new car. And suddenly everyone in town is driving a brand new red RAV4. You see them everywhere. And it's not that there's any more red RAV4s on the streets. It's just that your mind is populated to look for them. So I think that is one aspect of it. And then I think the other aspect is that we are starting to create better cultures in our school, places where it's safe for kids to say, I need help. It's safe for adults to say, I'm struggling and I need support here. And when we do that, we see an increase slightly, because not only are we looking for it, but we've created a place where it's okay to say it, and then we say it. Right. And instead of hiding it inside internally, and you always describe it as the hoodie's pulled, instead of the hoodie's pulled, we have more explosive behaviors. So I think that's a little bit of both. We're looking for it and we're creating a safer place for it.
Agreed.
Yeah. Which means we're doing something right.
Yeah.
I think that's something I always try to have teachers say when we're doing this work with them in small groups is turn and look to the person next to you and say, this is really hard, but we're doing something right. And that just creates a really powerful moment for everybody in the classroom. Wow. So our next little segment each time will be to have a guest speaker. And today this is our first time, so we don't have a guest speaker today. So we're going to have Rebecca kind of be our fill-in here.
Our pseudo guest speaker.
Rebecca, this is you're in your third year here at ESSDACK. Is that right? Yeah. And so I think when Rebecca came on to staff here, I was thrilled because she was giving a name and a larger platform to everything I had researched in education for years. So it was really just this person where I remember Ginger, who's not with us today, but normally will be. She said, you need to stick close to that one. She's going places. And so I've just kind of latched on to her coattails, and I'm going to ride as far as I can. So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of the history of our team here and what is it we're trying to accomplish here at ESSDACK?
So I get to be a part of this with amazing relationships that really help us sustain this big mission. And toxic stress and the brain and the way that it wires itself for protection and survival. And that was my story. And I was watching that play out with my own children in my home. I was watching that play out with the families that I worked with in my prior profession. And I was watching healing happen in my own life and in the lives of the families I was working with, and definitely in my kids. And, I think our business at ESSDACK is learning to create achievement in every student's life. We also recognize that all of our students are connected to families that live in communities, and that there's this bigger thing happening, and that the way things are occurring in the 21st century and the opportunities that we have, we've got to start looking at all of it and how it lives together. And so, and for us, the hope is in the resilience, the science that tells us the brain wants to heal and can heal at any age, and that it needs safe, supportive, available adult relationships to do so. And we know that physiologically, if brains are shut down from toxic stress, that they can't learn, they can't take in new information. And so, our why still centers around learning and helping schools create places where kids can achieve. And then what we've found on our team by spending so much time both in the profession and in your own personal classrooms and with so many teachers is that our teachers are hurting. They are hurting. And that the business of what's happening in our buildings on a daily basis, for the most part, is really intense. And most of our teachers are going home exhausted, overwhelmed. They start to feel powerless around students, the system, and all the things that it demands of us. And so there's this big theme that has emerged over the last few years around really helping schools get their arms around how to build a truly trauma-informed place, a truly trauma-informed staff. And our hopes and dreams is that communities would also start picking up on this, and we would have truly trauma-informed families where real healing can occur so that every person, student, teacher, parent, grandparent, pastor, can start to really have the ability to be the people that they're designed to be. And so for us, this is really about healing, because healing is what we need to do to create learning and achievement. Yeah. And we're all just on this journey together. And I think all of us have our own trauma and our lived experience. And, and so it's really exciting. Don't you guys think, to be at this time where the relationships. Like first, I would probably imagine since mankind started doing groups, people figured out, oh, these groups go much better if there's deep, trusting relationships. But, you know, and so you always hear it's all about the relationship. So now we have science that says these relationships for the adults and the kids are how human beings become their best selves. And it's taken us to be in a strong relationship. And we just kind of want to say that on these shows, like you'll be able to comment on Facebook Live, like we don't have all the answers and we don't always agree. And that's okay. It's healthy. My paradigm, I was thinking about this, my prayer for 2020 for my life is that I will continue to have my paradigms turned upside down. I've had several turned upside down over the last few years. And I just want to continue to have my paradigms turned upside down and go to new places and continue to go deeper with mankind
Really
and how I get to be a part of that, you know? Yeah.
Wow. So, you know, we do several things here at ESSDACK to kind of support this movement. You know, we do professional learning and we go out to schools and we do those things and we'll do things like this. But I think one of the biggest things that we do every year, the two conferences we hold around this topic, and Moving the Needle has passed for this year, but Bridging Resilience is coming up soon. And so Bridging to Resilience is a national conference that we co-host with Jim Sporleader
from Paper Tigers.
Gosh, we love him. I actually was emailing with him just last night. It always just makes my heart so happy when I get a chance to talk to him. But Bridging to Resilience is, let's kind of maybe Carmen share a little bit. What is Bridging to Resilience? Why do we do it? What's awesome about it?
So Bridging to Resilience is a conference that's held up in the Kansas City area. And it is open for everybody. We want all different professions, people, everybody there, because again, just like Rebecca said, like we feel that we need everybody to actually help families, help communities to heal. And so we're really excited about our keynote speaker this year, Adam Voss. And Rebecca will share a little bit more about Adam, but he's a lawyer, and he has a phenomenal TED Talk out there as well, which we'll link for you guys to check out. But the work that he is doing right now is just amazing. Rebecca, do you want to share?
Yeah, and so we're deeply, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and give you an opinion that we are, you know, in America, we're pretty deeply rooted in punishment and kind of that Old Testament justice. You know, you do this and we hit you hard and that will teach you. And we know from brain science that fight, flight, freeze brains, that kind of doesn't work. And so again, we have 4% of the world's population and 22% of the world's prisoners. And so you just kind of wrap your head around that. And so there's all different types of disciplines, including lawyers and judges and, you know, police forces are really trying to wrap their arms around mass incarceration. We know in schools that there's a thing called the school to prison pipeline. And we know that we've got to figure out discipline versus punishment. And so Adam Voss has really done some powerful things in Baltimore. Is that where he kind of started? Or Philadelphia? I can't remember, but it's in the TED Talk. You'll have to watch it. But this year at Bridging to Resilience, we're really, because schools get stuck on the discipline versus punishment part. And so what does it look like if we're not going to do punishment? And are we doing punishment? What does that mean? Are discipline and punishment different? And if we come to an agreement in our buildings that maybe perhaps we are doing punishment, then if we're not going to do that, then what are we going to do? And what does that look like? Because we still want to get a behavior change and we still want to teach cause and effect, and people, kids included, even if they've had a ton of trauma, still need to repair harm that's done, right? We have to live in a community, and we're not preparing kids well if we're not teaching them how to recover from an offense. So this year, and Jim Sporleader, you know, in the documentary Paper Tigers, if you haven't seen that, you can get it on Amazon for $12, I think. But, you know, he had a lot of really tough kids that came from tough places that were doing a lot of tough stuff in his building. And, you know, I think it was, you know, kind of divinely led that Jim started to figure out, how do we do discipline? You know, and so Adam Voss, TED Talk, it's a big name coming to help us kind of wrap our heads around, okay, what does the deeper deal look like? And I'm so excited about that.
Right, so you can find out more about Bridging Resilience at resilience.esdac.org. Proposals are open right now. So if you have a story that you feel like needs to be shared, and if you have a story, it needs to be shared, we would love for you to submit a proposal to come talk to us at our conference. I think this shifts us nice into our third segment, which is our Hope Spotlight. So our Hope Spotlight for this week or this episode is going to be Emily Daniels from hearthisnow.org. And we're excited that Emily will be our guest next month on our episode. But Emily has recently written a blog post called Toxic Schools Worsening Toxic Stress. And I'll be honest, I haven't had an opportunity to read it yet. So tell me a little bit, why do we need to read this post? Why do we need to talk to Emily? That's her
I've been
story.
following Emily for quite a while, and she was one of the early pioneers who's really still, I feel like, really ahead of a lot of us. But, she really starts to help us uncover our hidden belief system that all behavior is a form of choice. She really helps us to understand that the way that we show up in the world is very rooted in behaviorism. And she's starting to help us really get a clear line of sight that there's something more, and that perhaps even our behaviorism practices are becoming outdated because we now have brain scans and epidemiology and, just science around genes and what they do and how they turn on and they turn off. But I just want to, so this blog post, when I read it, and Emily is a very brilliant woman with quite a bit of education and formal training. And I'm just this chick from a Kansas trailer park. But when I read this blog post, there was so much of it that I think there's a hole in the ceiling where I jumped out of my chair and got so excited. I just want to read you just a brief couple of sentences that's towards the end of her post. We hold a deeply entrenched belief that children and adults possess 100% conscious control over their behavior. How often do we say to children or loved ones or colleagues in the wake of a terrible mistake, "What were you thinking?" Most commonly they reply, "I wasn't." Truth be told, they weren't because they couldn't. So I would just invite you to go to Hear This Now and look for this blog post and share it with your friends. I got this little piece of information that this is actually the first chapter to the book that she is authoring. And so there's going to be deeper learning available here. But she's definitely a champion for educators and kids and counselors. And so.
Nice. So Emily will be joining us next month on our webinar. So I guess this kind of wraps up our first episode today. This is awesome. So just kind of what's a highlight or a question you're still pondering from our talk today? Something's kind of, you're going to walk away today thinking, yeah, that was important for us to talk about or think deeper on.
Yeah. Well, I'm ready to just dive into the blog post because I haven't read Emily's post yet.
Same.
And so just learning from her and learning more about her and seeing where that takes us.
Okay. Awesome. Rebecca?
I'm really curious to just hear from people that interact with this kind of segment today. What questions do you have around behaviorism and behavior as a choice? And when is behavior a choice? And if people aren't, I just think there's a whole deep well of possibility in that conversation right there.
I'm reflecting on a conversation I had this morning on the way to school with my daughter about the choices that she makes in the morning to not get ready for school that make us late. And so just kind of that opportunity to where, when is the right time to have those conversations and when can I have them when she's in a regulated state? I need to get better as a human.
Parenting,
just as a human.
Trauma-informed parenting.
It's big. So that's something I'm really thinking about and pondering still, just because it's fresh on my mind right now from this morning. But so thanks for spending a little bit of time with us today in this resilience conversation. We hope you'll join us next time, Wednesday, January 8th at 9 a.m. We will be live on Facebook. That's going to be fun. And for past episodes, you can check us out at resilience-coaching.esdac.org. So thanks for your time. See you next time.
Bye, everybody.